Have you ever stood up from your favorite chair and quietly thought to yourself, that felt harder than it used to? Maybe it happened this morning when you got out of bed, or after sitting through your favorite television show. Perhaps you were carrying groceries into the house and realized you needed to stop for a moment before making it to the kitchen. Most people don't think much about moments like these. They simply smile, shrug their shoulders, and say, well, I guess that's just part of getting older. But what if it isn't? What if those small changes are actually your body's way of asking for help long before they become a much bigger problem? The truth is, our bodies rarely change overnight. Weakness doesn't suddenly appear one morning. Instead, it develops so gradually that most people never notice it happening. One day you begin using the armrest to help yourself stand up. A few months later, you naturally choose the elevator instead of the stairs. Then, without realizing it, you stop taking evening walks because they don't feel as enjoyable as they once did. These changes seem so small that they're easy to ignore. But over time, they can slowly take away something that's incredibly valuable: your confidence. And once people begin losing confidence in what their bodies can do, they often start doing less. They walk less, move less, exercise less, and unfortunately, that creates a cycle that makes the body even weaker. The encouraging news is that this story doesn't have to end that way. Our bodies are remarkably adaptable, even later in life. While aging is something none of us can stop, many of the changes that people assume are simply old age can often be slowed, improved, or managed with the right habits and the right information. That's exactly why I wanted to make today's video. Welcome to Healthy Years. I'm Dr. Evermont, and every week we share practical, evidence-based information to help adults over 60 stay healthy, active, and independent. If that's something you care about, I'd love to invite you to subscribe and become part of our Healthy Years family. Our goal isn't to overwhelm you with complicated medical terms or unrealistic promises. Instead, we focus on simple steps that can help you protect your health and continue enjoying the life you've worked so hard to build. Today, we're going to talk about 5 everyday signs that your body may be getting weaker. These aren't dramatic symptoms that send people rushing to the emergency room. In fact, they're so common that many people overlook them completely. But recognizing them early can make a real difference, because early action often leads to better outcomes. As we go through each sign, I encourage you to think about your own daily routine. Ask yourself, have I noticed this happening? Not to worry yourself, but to become more aware of what your body may be trying to tell you. Let's begin with something almost every one of us has already done today: standing up from a chair. It sounds almost too simple to matter, yet healthcare professionals often pay close attention to this everyday movement because it reveals a surprising amount about your overall physical function. Standing up requires much more than strong legs. Your thigh muscles, hips, core muscles, joints, balance, and nervous system all have to work together smoothly. When one of those systems begins to weaken, your body naturally finds another way to get the job done. Think back to this morning. When you stood up after breakfast, did you rise comfortably, or did you place both hands on the table or the armrest to help push yourself up? Maybe you leaned forward first to build a little momentum. Perhaps you stood up without much difficulty, but your legs felt stiff or unsteady for the first few steps. If you've noticed changes like these, you're certainly not alone. Many adults over the age of 60 experience them. Often without realizing, they can be an early sign that their lower body strength is changing. One of the reasons this happens is something called age-related muscle loss. As we grow older, it's normal to lose some muscle mass, especially if we're not staying physically active. But what's important to understand is that muscles don't simply disappear because of age. Inactivity, poor nutrition, certain medical conditions, and even long periods of sitting can all contribute to losing strength faster than expected. That's why two people of the same age can have completely different levels of strength and mobility. One person may still enjoy hiking with friends, while another struggles to stand up from the couch. Age matters, but daily habits matter too. One story that has always stayed with me involved a woman in her early 70s who believed needing her hands to stand up was simply part of getting older. She had been doing it for so long that she never questioned it. Then one afternoon, while visiting her daughter, her young grandson looked at her and asked, "Grandma, why do you always push yourself out of your chair?" It was such an innocent question, but it made her stop and think. She realized she hadn't always needed to do that. The change had happened so slowly that she never noticed it. After talking with her healthcare provider, she started taking short walks each day, added a few gentle strengthening exercises that were appropriate for her ability, and paid more attention to getting enough protein in her meals. She wasn't trying to become an athlete. She simply wanted everyday life to feel easier again. A few months later, she noticed something remarkable. Standing up didn't feel like such a struggle anymore. She felt steadier on her feet, and she had more confidence moving around her home. Her story is a wonderful reminder that small, consistent improvements often lead to meaningful results. So I'd like you to do something simple the next time you stand up from your chair. Don't rush. Take just a moment to notice how your body moves. Are your legs doing most of the work, or are your arms quietly taking over? Does the movement feel smooth and controlled, or does it require more effort than it used to? Your answer doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong, but it may be the first clue that your body deserves a little more attention. And while standing up from a chair is one of the earliest signs many people notice, the next sign often appears somewhere else entirely. It usually happens outside the living room, on a staircase, in a parking lot, or while walking through the grocery store. At first, it seems like a minor inconvenience, but over time, it can quietly affect almost every part of your daily life. The next sign usually doesn't happen while you're exercising. It happens during one of the most ordinary parts of your day. Maybe you're walking into church on Sunday morning. Maybe you're heading into the grocery store or climbing the steps to your front porch. One day, without really thinking about it, you notice you're reaching for the handrail every single time. You tell yourself it's just to be safe, and there's certainly nothing wrong with being careful. But sometimes that small habit is your body's way of compensating for strength that has slowly faded over time. Climbing stairs is one of the most demanding activities we perform during a normal day. Every single step requires your legs to lift nearly your entire body weight while keeping you balanced. Your thigh muscles, hips, calves, ankles, and core all have to work together. If one of those muscles isn't doing its job as well as it used to, your body immediately finds another way to complete the movement. That's why many people begin pulling themselves up with the handrail instead of pushing themselves upward with their legs. The difficult part is that this change rarely happens all at once. It develops so gradually that most people don't even realize they're adapting. First, they grab the handrail only when they're tired. A few months later, they use it every time. Then they begin avoiding stairs altogether whenever possible. They choose the elevator at the mall, park closer to the entrance, or look for homes without stairs. None of these choices seem like a big deal on their own, but together they reduce the amount of work your muscles do each day. And muscles follow a very simple rule. If we stop using them, they become weaker. One gentleman once shared something with me that I still remember. He had recently retired and loved spending time with his grandchildren. Every weekend they would come over, running through the house and racing up the stairs. For years he chased right behind them. Then one afternoon, he noticed they had reached the second floor before he was even halfway up the staircase. He laughed it off and blamed his age. But later that evening, he admitted something that surprised him. It wasn't just the stairs. Walking across parking lots felt harder too. Carrying groceries had become more tiring. His body had been changing for quite some time. But because it happened little by little, he never noticed until those everyday moments began adding up. The encouraging part of his story is that he didn't give up. After talking with his healthcare provider, he started a simple walking routine and added a few gentle strength exercises several times a week. Nothing extreme, no expensive gym membership, just consistent movement. Several months later, he wasn't sprinting up the stairs with his grandchildren, but he no longer dreaded climbing them either. More importantly, he regained confidence in what his body could do. That confidence is something we don't talk about enough. Many people think muscle strength is only about lifting weights. It isn't. Strength is confidence. It's knowing you can get out of your car without struggling. It's walking across a parking lot without worrying about falling. It's carrying groceries into the house without needing 3 separate trips. It's keeping up with your grandchildren for a little longer. Those moments are what strength really gives us. Now I'd like to ask you another simple question. When was the last time you went for a walk simply because you enjoyed it? Not because you had somewhere to go, not because your doctor told you to, just because it felt good to move. For many older adults, the answer is, it's been a while. Sometimes that's because life gets busy. Sometimes it's because of pain. But very often it's because walking just doesn't feel as easy anymore. This brings us to another sign that many doctors pay close attention to, even though most people never think about it: your walking speed. Believe it or not, something as simple as your normal walking pace can tell us a great deal about your overall health. In fact, many specialists who care for older adults consider walking speed one of the most useful ways to understand how well the body is functioning. That's because walking depends on almost every major system working together. Your muscles provide the strength. Your joints allow movement. Your heart and lungs deliver oxygen. Your brain coordinates every step, while your eyes and inner ear help keep you balanced. When one or more of those systems begins to struggle, your walking often changes long before you notice anything else. Think back 5 years. Did you naturally keep up with your spouse while shopping? Did you enjoy walking around the neighborhood after dinner? Did you cross the parking lot without giving it much thought? Now think about today. Do you notice people walking around you more quickly? Have family members started slowing down so you can catch up? Do you take shorter steps than you used to? Do longer walks leave your legs feeling unusually tired? These changes don't always mean something serious is wrong, but they are worth paying attention to because they tell a story about how your body is functioning. One woman told me something that really stayed with me. She said, "I didn't realize I'd slowed down until my daughter started holding my arm every time we walked together." Her daughter wasn't trying to make her feel old, she was simply trying to help. But that small moment made her realize her walking had changed much more than she thought. The good news is that walking ability often responds very well to regular activity. Studies have consistently shown that older adults who stay physically active can improve their strength, endurance, and mobility even later in life. You don't have to walk miles every day. The goal is simply to keep moving in ways that are safe and appropriate for your health. This week, I'd like to give you a small challenge. Find a safe place to take a 10-minute walk. As you walk, don't worry about your speed. Instead, pay attention to how your body feels. Are your steps smooth and steady? Do your legs feel strong? Can you turn around comfortably? Do you feel confident walking without constantly looking at the ground? These simple observations can tell you much more than a stopwatch ever could. Before we continue, I'd love to hear from you. How old are you? And which of the signs we've talked about so far sounds the most familiar? Let us know down in the comments. One of my favorite things about the Healthy Years community is seeing people encourage one another and realize they're not alone. And if you're finding today's video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to Healthy Years. Every week, we're here to help you better understand your body and give you practical, trustworthy information to help you stay active and independent for as long as possible. Now, we've talked about standing up from a chair, climbing stairs, and changes in the way you walk. But the next sign is one that catches almost everyone by surprise because it happens during the simplest moments of daily life. One day, you pick up a grocery bag, a laundry basket, or even your grandchild, and you suddenly think, when did this become so heavy? That simple question may reveal more about your health than you realize. That simple question may reveal more about your health than you realize. Think about the last time you carried a bag of groceries into your house. Maybe it was a gallon of milk, a basket of laundry, or a small suitcase while getting ready for a trip. These are things you've probably lifted hundreds of times throughout your life. Then one day, almost without warning, they seem heavier. Your arms get tired sooner. You need to stop halfway to catch your breath. Or you decide to make 2 trips instead of 1 because carrying everything at once just doesn't feel comfortable anymore. If that sounds familiar, don't ignore it. One of the earliest signs of declining strength isn't that you suddenly become unable to lift something. It's that everyday tasks begin requiring much more effort than they used to. Because this change happens gradually, many people never connect it to muscle strength. They assume the grocery bags are heavier, or they simply laugh and say, "I guess I'm not as young as I used to be." While that's an understandable reaction, it's not always the full story. Our muscles naturally become less efficient as we age, especially if we spend more time sitting and less time moving. That's why activities that once felt effortless may slowly become more challenging. But here's the encouraging part. Your muscles are remarkably responsive, even later in life. They don't stop adapting simply because you've turned 60, 70, or even 80. When you continue using them safely and consistently, they often respond much better than people expect. One woman wrote to our Healthy Years community and shared something that really touched me. She said she realized her strength had changed the day she couldn't comfortably lift her young granddaughter into her arms. It wasn't because her granddaughter had suddenly become too heavy. It was because she had slowly become less active after retiring. She told herself she was simply enjoying a slower pace of life. But over time, that slower pace became less movement, and less movement gradually became less strength. After speaking with her healthcare provider, she began walking every day, joined a local senior fitness class twice a week, and made a few simple improvements to her diet. Several months later, she sent another message saying she could once again pick up her granddaughter with confidence. She didn't become stronger overnight, but she became stronger than she thought was possible. Stories like that remind us that healthy aging isn't about chasing perfection. It's about protecting the abilities that make everyday life enjoyable. Carrying groceries, working in the garden, picking up your grandchild, reaching for something on a high shelf. These moments may seem ordinary, but together they represent something incredibly valuable: your independence. That brings us to the 5th and final sign, and in many ways, I believe it's the most important one of all: balance. Most people never think about their balance until something unexpected happens. Maybe you stood up too quickly and felt unsteady for a second. Maybe you caught yourself grabbing the kitchen counter as you walked by. Perhaps you stumbled on a sidewalk that you've walked across dozens of times before. Or maybe you haven't fallen, but you've started worrying that you might. That last one is especially important. Sometimes it's not the fall that changes a person's life. It's the fear of falling. I've spoken with many older adults who gradually stopped doing things they loved because they no longer trusted their balance. They stopped taking walks around the neighborhood. They stopped traveling. They stopped visiting friends as often. They even stopped exercising because they were afraid of getting hurt. Unfortunately, the less we move, the weaker our muscles become. And weaker muscles make falls even more likely. It's a cycle that can quietly take away both strength and confidence. Good balance depends on much more than just your feet. It requires strong leg muscles, healthy vision, a well-functioning inner ear, quick reflexes, and a brain that can coordinate all of those systems at the same time. If one of those pieces isn't working as well as it once did, your balance may begin to change. Here's a simple question I'd like you to think about. Do you feel comfortable standing on one foot for just a few seconds while holding onto a sturdy countertop for safety? Can you turn around while walking without feeling unsteady? Do you walk confidently across grass, gravel, or uneven sidewalks? Or do you instinctively look for something to hold on to? There's no reason to feel embarrassed if you've noticed these changes. The important thing is recognizing them early instead of pretending they aren't happening. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, falls are one of the leading causes of serious injuries among older adults in the United States. But many falls don't happen because of one single event. They happen after months or even years of gradually losing strength, balance, flexibility, and confidence. That's why paying attention to these small warning signs today can help reduce much bigger problems tomorrow. So before we finish, I'd like you to remember the 5 signs we talked about today. If standing up from a chair feels harder than it used to, if climbing stairs has become more difficult, if you've noticed yourself walking more slowly, if everyday objects suddenly feel heavier, or if your balance isn't what it once was, please don't simply tell yourself, "I'm getting old." Instead, ask yourself a better question. What is my body trying to tell me? Because your body is always communicating with you. The sooner you listen, the more opportunities you have to protect your strength, your mobility, and your independence. Thank you so much for spending part of your day here with me on Healthy Years. I truly appreciate every one of you who chooses to learn, grow, and take better care of your health alongside us. If you found today's video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Healthy Years if you haven't already. Every week, Dr. Evermont brings you practical, evidence-based information designed to help you stay healthier, stronger, and more independent as you grow older. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. How old are you? And which one of these 5 signs have you noticed the most? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read as many of your comments as I can, and your story may encourage someone else who thought they were facing these challenges alone. Until next time, keep moving, take care of yourself, and remember that healthy aging isn't about adding more years to your life. It's about adding more life to your years. I'm Dr. Evermont, and I'll see you in the next Healthy Years video.